I was thinking about my own experience of how peaceless I was and how I explored the self, my relationship with the divine, a higher purpose in life, and how that took me and is taking me back home to being the original peaceful being that I am. And I know a lot has been covered by Vedanti Didi, for whom I have a lot of love and great admiration. And I was thinking of these three pillars in our life, a very deep sense of identity and a deep sense of belonging and a deep sense of direction. Without this, we are lost, we are completely peaceless. And that takes me back to think of my own journey when I left Argentina when I was 24. I left on a very long, nearly 2-year journey. And when my parents asked me, where are you going? I said, well, I'm not sure where I'm going. And then they asked me, when are you coming back? And I said, well, I don't know that either. So I left like a, like a lost boat in the middle of the ocean. And I had so many questions. And this was, it was making me mad. And, when you're young, you think that things are much better elsewhere. It's different from where you are. We have that dream that things will be great in Europe. And then when I reached Europe, I realized there was nothing. I mean, Europe is great, but then I thought, let me go to India. So I moved on to India, and I thought there I would find, and in fact, I did, because this is how I came. But I had so many questions. And I would say that the aspect of peacelessness that gave me most sorrow in my search was loneliness. The loneliness and the feeling of not being protected or understood. And I remember traveling. I was very young, and there were many travelers, backpackers on the road in India. And I was never alone, but I was alone with my questions in my mind. And I felt I was so unclear, so uncertain. And this is where I felt that nobody could understand what I needed to experience and what I needed. And now, once we're all on a spiritual journey or searching, we know that we all go through the same things, but in different ways at the same time. It's because each one is so unique, and each one's life story is so beautiful. And the way, the things that trigger our curiosity and our courage and our eagerness to learn makes us so special. And so in this search, I reached a point. I was trekking in Jaisalmer. I was on camels for a few days in the desert. And there is where I felt I touched rock bottom of maximum peacelessness. And I was telling my friends, I need to stop. I need to rest my mind somewhere. And this is when I came back from, and they said, what I told them is, I can hear so much noise. And we were in the desert in Jaisalmer. It was so quiet. You could only hear the bells, in the knees of the camels. But I said, I have so much noise in my mind. So the lack of clarity makes us so peaceless. And the fact that I had no sense of direction, I felt I'm very young. I had the conviction I could do literally anything. Anything I wanted was possible. I was pretty clear on that, but I didn't want anything. So that made, not having any clarity about where it is that I'm going, who I am, and this loneliness made I was feeling like in hell. And I told my friends, I need to stop, because now even traveling has no meaning for me. And this is when I stopped in Jodhpur, and I asked someone, where can I rest my mind? And then they told me, well, you could go to Mount Abu. And I thought, okay. And Mount Abu meant coming back because I was on my way to Nepal. I was going to trek in the Himalayas. And this is how I reached Mount Abu. And I met the Brahma Kumaris at the Dilwara temple. And I asked them, who are you? And they were all young people. They were all in saris like me right now. And I thought, but there was something about them that I thought, I don't want to become an Indian. But my questions were so profound. And they were all in saris, but I had the feeling that the sari was just in the body. They were not trying to become someone they were not. Because sari is not really our dress in the West. And I had seen so much on the road. And I said, I don't want to buy a story that will break at the airport on my return to Argentina, which is the other end of the world. Literally, we are opposite. You know, we are the ones who are furthermost from India. And yet I feel I'm a Bharatwasi soul and I belong to India, and India is just a thought away from me. And I come back every year. But at that moment, someone said, we're young people who practice meditation. I said, well, I'm sure meditation is going to help me, you know, cool down this mess in my mind. And so she said something that I thought was very important. She said, what we do is free of charge. And the fact that I had this conviction that truth is available to all with no distinction. Everybody has a right to understand and experience truth. And so that, you know, there was no price tag to what I could receive, to what I could be learning. So I went with some friends, and the moment I stepped into our headquarters in Mount Abu, specifically a hall called Om Shanti Bhavan, I felt I was in a safe place. And I felt that something kind of released, you know? And then they were explaining many things about the philosophy of the Brahma Kumaris and Raj Yoga, but I was not listening to them so much. I was really struck by the face of the founder of the Brahma Kumaris, Brahma. I felt that I knew him, and I felt that in every picture he was present, and I thought there was something about coming back home that made my heart feel so good. And then they said, well, we can teach you meditation. And so I was with another traveler, and I said, well, I want to teach it for myself. I don't want to share. And they said, that's okay, you can have one. And so we each had their teacher. And when the first lesson, I was introduced to such a high sense of identity, understanding the true self as a soul, was such a splash in my mind. And it made me feel that this was it. This was going to be my journey. And I felt that I started the adventure of knowing myself. And nothing could bring so much interest and all my attention than to know myself. I didn't really know at that point what that would entitle, because it would mean that I would have to learn what I truly am and also what I am not. That which I was so proud of, that which I had held on to as an acquired identity, as someone, you know, coming from Argentina, from a very good family, and all these things that seem to create the sense of who I am, and the guarantees and things that you hold on to when the identity comes from something acquired. But this coming back home to the understanding that I am an eternal being, then all this that is happening around me right now is just temporary. So it became so fascinating. And a sense of belonging awoke when someone asked me, have you met Baba, as we call him in the Brahma Kumaris, referring to God? And because my search was I wanted to understand the meaning of life. I wanted to understand what love is. So this emptiness, this loneliness that made me so peaceless was so strong. And when I walked into this home, it was a family, it was a place of a family, a global family. It meant so much to me. I felt I was being born into a family of very unique individuals, but I felt a warmth that was touching my heart. And when I was asked, have you met God? I said, well, I don't know when you say God, what you really mean by him. I was brought up as a Christian, and I believed in God, and I loved the spirit of Christianity as a religion very much focused on service. So that made a lot of sense to me. But when I was, asked, have you met God? I said, well, I don't really know how to meet him. And so when I was, giving my further steps into this practice of becoming the observer and becoming detached from my body and understanding that I am the spiritual being, I felt a presence that was caressing my heart. And I could say that at that point, it's as if God won my heart secretly. He was not an intrusive. He emerged as a presence, as an energy. And as I learned further about his divine nature, his power, his role as the father, as the mother, it brought me back home to connect with my rights. And one thing that we strongly believe in Brahma Kumaris, which I love, is that we are heir children to God. That brings us back home to the understanding that anything and everything we want and we feel we need already belongs to us. It is a right. Because of who we are, every single soul is a child of the Supreme. And when we observe and we understand that, yes, I am soul and he is the Supreme, the source of peace, the source of love, my parent, my divine father, and my mother, then what I felt the safety, I felt the courage, and I instantly surrendered. I remember Daddy Janki, a very, very senior, very, very powerful soul who was our administrative head who left us a couple of years ago. But Daddy Janki became someone so important in my life. I remember she asked me, what are you going to do with your life now? And I looked into her eyes and I said to myself, I can trust her purity. I didn't call it purity because I didn't know about it at that time, but I looked at her and I said, this little lady, she was minute and I'm very tall. I thought she could be my mother. And she was sitting on a rattan chair with her feet on another rattan chair. And she said to me, tell me your whole story. And she said she wanted to know about my parents, my background, my everything. And I just opened my heart. I was safe. It was so true. Everything was so true. And this is what made me feel everything is okay. When we think of peace, what does peace feel like? It is my experience of truth and the clarity that was coming into my awareness just from experience and beginning to understand. And Daddy said, what are you going to do with yourself now? And I said, you will laugh if I tell you what I said to her. I said, Daddy, I will do what you tell me. And I realized, and then she said, okay, Daddy, I told her I was on a world tour. I was on a very long journey. And Daddy said, okay, I'll make a plan for you. But she said, I'll let you know. And the days went by. They invited me to stay in Pandap Bhavan, the headquarters, the heart of the Brahma Kumaris, where a very powerful seed of peace, of power, of truth is planted, which was where Brahma Baba, our founding father, started this amazing organization for the world. And so they invited me to stay there. And somehow I just felt I was completely, sorry, that was not for me. I was completely taken, by the feeling of belonging. And so I felt this is my place, this is my family. And I seemed to walk from one place to the other, and I seemed to kind of recognize, that I was in a place where I have been before. And another aspect that I think is so connected with our experience of peace is about our understanding of time. And this, understanding that we are not only a spiritual being, but an eternal being, it is so profound. One of the sisters was giving me a class, and she said, she stood me in front of a huge wall, and there was a huge painting, and she told me, this is the cycle of time. And she said, this is divided into eras. And she said, she said, this is the golden age, the silver age, the copper age, the iron age, which for Indians, you're so familiar with. But she said, time repeats identically. And that blew my mind. And I said, hold on, do you mean to say that I have been here before? Have I been here before? And she said, yes. And I said, do you mean to say that I will always come back here? And she said, yes. And after that, it's as if, wow, there's nothing else I needed to know. She could have told me anything, and I would have just bought it, because somehow I touched base with I, the soul, the eternal being. And what is eternal about us is that we are peace. We don't need peace. We do need it as an experience, because we lose contact with who we are. But when we touch base with who I truly am, and this fact that we are eternal, so that is something that I am and I will always be. And so you would say, well, if I'm a peaceful soul, then why do I get angry? Then why do I get upset? Why do I move into conflictive interactions? And the reason is because we forgot who we are. And so this spiritual awakening made alive these pillars that would allow me to sail across my life all these years, for 36 years of, and something that I would have to learn so much of and continue to learn, and will have to learn until the end. And that is who I am. And this understanding of God being my father, as Vedanti Ben was saying, he's the parent. So I am an heir to his power, but I am an heir to something which today would be so significant to our peace, which is protection. We are heirs to God's protection. And we have a legitimate right. We are his children. So what does he need to protect us from? And, I've just moved into a beautiful retreat place that we have just bought. Oh, it's been, I would say, God's gift to all of us, his children here in Argentina, a little baby retreat place, but in a beautiful area. So you would think, okay, we need to be protected. Everybody asked me, what's security like around here? And so you think, okay, security. And of course, we have to install the cameras and we've got to put an alarm and these regular things we will do. But what do we really need protection from? And then we also have a WhatsApp group with all the neighbors. And so the neighbors, we're all connected. So in a way, we protect each other and we care for each other. And it's very interesting because things like, I've lost my dog could come across. And so people are wondering where their dog is. And so, but we're thinking of God's protection. So he wouldn't protect us exactly from mundane things. He would protect us from our ego. He would protect us from the way we think. And because he is teaching us how to think, we will know how to protect ourselves from people or difficult circumstances or situations. But there's, as much as I have a right as a child, let's say, to protection, I also have a responsibility, because I couldn't have access to his protection if I don't remember him, if I don't spend time with him, if I don't connect with him. So being with God and talking to God and listening to God is what gives us the guarantee that it doesn't matter what tests we will have to go through, and we're all going through complexity, uncertainty. The world is crumbling in many ways. I can't tell you, here in Argentina, you will be shocked to hear that our inflation is 100% yearly. 100%. I'll tell you one thing, to the extreme. This place was just bought, but last few weeks we were renting a huge house for our main center, and the rent just simply doubled. It 100%. So, and it's not that our students are earning double as well. So things are becoming, but we have, like, the way we decided, okay, we will return the house. We will adapt to this place. This is 50 kilometers from the city. So we're doing many things online. And there's nothing that will in a way deprive us of what we need and the care and the love and the protection from our parent. It doesn't matter what circumstances we have to sail as an individual, as a family, as a spiritual family. We always have this right, but we have to remember him. We have to, and I like this word remembrance, because the word meditation, I feel, I dare to say, sometimes confuses. At least in this part of the world, meditation is associated to an image. Someone sitting on a deck in a beautiful place, they cross legs, they look smart. And you would think that they have nothing to do, all their bills are paid, so this is their time and place for meditation. But for people who are working full day, busy, running around these, Buenos Aires is a huge city of 15 million people. So you would say, when do I find that beautiful place, that extra time? So I like the word remembrance more than meditation. Meditation's become like a fashion here. And so people think that meditation will just make me a better person and it will make me more relaxed. And meditation is really something that will transform me. It will empower me. It will allow the divine being that I am feel expression, free expression. So meditation does a lot more than just making us a good person and a bit more relaxed. It is so profound, so deep. And what is it? I like playing with, especially business people, when we have our retreats. I tell them, you know what? We need to meditate all day. They look at me like saying, you must be nuts. I have children, I have work, I have a family. And so the question is, what is it we understand meditation is about? And so if meditation is remembering and becoming aware of who I am and establishing a connection with the source, with that one that I belong to, then if meditation is being awake, it is being aware, and that allows me to make free choice, then that is something we would want to do the whole day. So it's not something that is crazy to think about, but it's something that we need to build a capacity to remember who I am, to remember who I belong to, but also to remember something Vedanti mentioned is, I would say, a sense of direction or a higher purpose in life. So she was saying to understand the role that I play. And it is so empowering. When I was, drifting like a lost boat in the ocean, I was not so sure what for do I exist? And when I came to Madhuban, our beautiful spiritual home, I really feel I belong there. I only feel I come here, to do a bit of service, but I belong there. And so it was like, one thing I used to tell myself in my search is it's a Spanish expression, but I translated it. It's like, I'm making time, when you're trying to make up for time. And that kind of shocked me at the age of 24. I thought, what exactly do I want to make? What do I want of my life? And I knew I could study, but I was not so interested in a career. I knew I was available to work, but I was not drawn to giving my life and energy to a full-time job. And of course, I think others would do, which is great. It was just, I'm just talking out of my own experience, right? But I felt that I wanted to do something that would make me feel fulfilled with my own existence. And this is when I reached Madhuban and I realized the importance of service, the example I had in front of me. It was the Brahma Kumari's 50th anniversary. And there must have been like 50 daddies. Daddies are very, very senior teachers. And they were like pearls in front of me, such beautiful beings. And I remember I was so inspired by them. And so I thought, I want to be like them. And I may tell you, I'm so far from being like any of them, but I just felt that I loved their peaceful being. They were so happy with the lives that they were living. And this is what awoke in me, a life full of meaning. And I realized that I would never be happy, even peaceful, if I was not doing for others as well. So I realized that as much as we do for ourselves, that itself is the gift that we can offer those who live with us, those who work with us, those in society, and here, and even the world. And this, when I think of the repercussion of what each one of us is and what we can do today in the world, takes us right into our power of thought and the power that, the power of silence. I realized the daddies, when I looked into their eyes, they were in such deep silence, but silence not being emptiness, silence being the clarity of truth and the place from where our purest thoughts are created, from where our pure feelings emerge. And when we think of service, a life full of meaning, when you hear the news and you hear things happening around the world, you could feel like frustrated that you can't do much about that. But when we look at the power that lies within the self, the power of thought and a clean mind and a pure heart, then the impact that the silence that we accumulate in the form of good thoughts and good feelings, it travels. It is unlimited. It not only changes my life, but it will touch the life of others in such a significant way. One thing that I observed in Daddy Janki especially, she was like not only a mother, but a mentor in my life, is how much she played with the real power of thought and how much she understood and shared with us the gift that pure thoughts is in our life and the life of others. Sometimes we try to overcome a conflict with words. We try to solve things with explanations, but sometimes we either mess it up or is not enough, or it doesn't even create an impact. But when we have enough silence and self-observation, and when we are nourished with pure thoughts, those thoughts will touch the life of others, will get things done. Pure feelings will create equal feelings in others. And this is something we can experiment with more and more and more. And any peacelessness we have in that cocoon of silent observation will be dispelled, will become coolness, will become clarity. It will become that safety that we need. And a very beautiful practice in the form of very incognito, selfless service is to share good wishes. So the language of silence is the language of pure thoughts, of the best feelings that come from pure thoughts based on the truth of who we are and of who others are. Because also language is expressed through our vision, through our drishti. And drishti being the understanding and of who you are. It's not about looking at you with these eyes, it's about looking at you with this eye. The eye that appreciates you, the eye that loves you, the eye that feels compassion and that wants the best for you. I remember, the daddies have all left us, except for one. We still have one precious, beautiful daddy in Madhuban. So if any of you haven't been to Madhuban, please go. And if you haven't met a daddy, please meet Daddy Ratan Mohini, a beautiful jewel. Daddies were those souls of the foundation of this organization. They were the companions of Brahma Baba in establishing this university for the world. And the daddies had a vision of us that was so powerful. I remember sitting in front of them. Daddy Janki would give you this very powerful look in her eyes, this drishti, and then she would say, Bolo, say something, speak. And so maybe, let's say I came to her with a lot of turmoil in my mind, with maybe a broken heart, something, because we always came for help with them. We brought news, sometimes good news, but sometimes we came with our difficulties. And when we sat in front of her, or any of the daddies, the way they looked at us, it's as if sometimes when daddy said, Bolo, I had literally little or nothing to say anymore, because somehow that vision of herself being the embodiment of peace, the embodiment of love, the embodiment of truth, in a way awoke that in me. And that vision, that purity in the vision would take me to that place of who I am, different from how I found myself at that point. And that was so empowering. That was so dear to all of us. And they did also listen to us. And the advice, every word they spoke to us meant so much. It was transforming. But it was coming from a very pure heart that wanted my progress, that wanted me to overcome, that wanted me, but because it had that impact in me, because they were practicing that for themselves. They were drawing that power from God, and they were using it in a way that made them those real diamonds that we in the Brahma Kumaris cherish so much. And it's interesting, you know, because although the daddies have left us, in a way, they're still with us. Their pure form, their vibrations are still, you know, encouraging us. Like, in a way, it's an angelic company that we have. And if we remember them, if we remember the time shared with them, we will feel their presence. So I think this is something that we can all also cultivate in ourselves. Nothing would make us feel so proud of ourselves if we are able to, you know, stand up on our own, I would say, wings to fly or feet to walk, when we transform negative habits, negative feelings, a negative vision, when we overcome conflict, and then we feel good. We feel that, you know, we can trust good thoughts, good feelings that create good interactions. And we can see how much we're growing spiritually is reflected in my relationships. It's the mirror of my level of purity, of my sincerity, in the way we relate to each other, in the power of intention and authenticity of whatever I do, and how that impacts people and the atmosphere around. We can really, it's really mind-blowing when we think of the power of thought as the seed of all creation, and how, when it is nourished by the power of peace coming from the divine, which is such a pure energy that washes away my past and allows me to be and recreate myself every day in the present. Because something that robs our peace is living in the past. You know, I think that a big one is overcoming criticism, judgmentalism, which is, in a way, in a very mundane way, it is so legitimate. You know, if you're critical in the world, it's maybe, you know, you have to have an opinion. It's like, it's expected from you socially, at least. But we know what it takes to transform my own negativity, my own impurity, my weaknesses. So we become lawyers and judges of other people's weaknesses. And it's only, I think, I would say that criticism or being judgmental is like a signal of my own laziness, because I'm not seeing if I become fully aware of what it takes to be peaceful or happy, then I would have all my attention on my own transformation. And it is when we get distracted, it's like a very subtle laziness that we look outwards. So we are looking at, you know, what people's mistakes, and we talk about them and we make them bigger. And it's just, it talks more about me than about whoever I'm referring to. And it would refer to the laziness of my own inner work and effort to remove those thorns from my heart and to overcome those weaknesses in my life. So I think that coming back home, another very beautiful aspect that I found, and I recently had a very beautiful chance to discover, is actually not possessing anything. When we think of a world driven by materialism, what makes people so peaceless and worried and unsafe is holding on to things and being the owner of things and the ego that comes from it. But it makes us constantly worried over people, worried over situations, over possessions, over places. And since I was a child, I used to think I'm not an ambitious person. I never wanted anything. I never had this thought I should get married to someone wealthy or own a car or a house. I never wanted anything. I never wanted anything. I knew I would never lack anything. And my father was a very, generous dad, and he provided everything, even the best education here. But I personally felt that I wouldn't run after anything. But when I came to the Brahma Kumaris, I learned something which was even higher than not wanting. It was having things, but not owning them. And that I found was fascinating, because there's a practice, an awareness that we can practice, which is being what we call in the Brahma Kumaris a trustee. So what would it entitle not to own anything is, life provides things. For a start, we have a body, we have a family, we have a place we live in, we own maybe other possessions, we maybe own a shop or a business. But literally, we don't own anything. Everything is with me, but I don't own it. Because when I leave this body, for a start, I will leave it and return it to nature. The family will stay behind. The shop will stay behind. Everything will stay behind. So everything is acquired, temporary. But on the other hand, when I say don't own anything, I don't mean we have to, give everything away and be deprived of the things you need. But I mean is to overcome this myness, children being mine, this idea being mine, everything being mine, this robs our peace completely. Because it makes us someone who is possessive and selfish, and then we will try to be convincing and imposing and bossy and very insecure. And the example I hold in my heart is the example of Brahma Baba, a millionaire of his time, someone who was so highly respected by society at his time in Hyderabad when he started. And he was living a life of luxury with a beautiful family. But when he awoke spiritually as what he would further know as God's instrument through whom he would teach Raj Yoga and divine revelation and teachings. At that time, his home was it was open to the community, people coming to visit his gurus, and him offering the highest hospitality as a Hindu of those days. But when he awakens spiritually, he discovers the real wealth, the real abundance of life, which came from understanding that he was an embodiment of peace, an embodiment of love, a light, a living energy. And the experience of his awakening made him realize what would be the purpose and meaning of his life, not only to serve God, but to serve humanity in a completely selfless way. And that would mean that he would surrender everything he had. And that, in fact, became the seed money of the foundation of this huge organization that has reached even my country, which is very far. And his being wealthy would no longer depend on matter. It would not be defined by money. It would not be defined by possessions. And so he very humbly offered everything he had in the hands of those days, young women, young yogis, who would use that to serve humanity. And of course, Brahma Baba is one. Not everybody could probably do that. We probably have to run our business to sustain the family and pay for education, expensive universities and schools and whatever. But we could be like him in the sense of not owning. So the practice of being a trustee is offer everything you have to God. And of course, he will make you the caretaker of everything you offer to him. And whether that sustains your life, your family life or your business life or whatever, but it relieves you of the weight of being the owner, my possessions. When it's mine, it's also my energy that sustains it. But when it's yours, then it's your energy that sustains it. And in such an uncertain world where you cannot, how much can you plan ahead? What guarantees do you have of what you will have in a year or 2 or 5 or 10? No guarantees. But when we surrender everything to the divine, to my spiritual father, then anything and everything I need will be provided. So nothing could make me feel more tranquil or more, to have the guarantee that if I am in his hands, my life will always be okay. And that is a right I have. But you see, my step is I give everything. But it's not that I'm giving packets of things. It's that I stop possessing. And even if you have to look at your children, think of them. They're not my children, they are God's children. So it's his energy that will protect them. You will have to take care of them, raise them, educate them, and be their friend for a lifetime. But at not owning them. Because nothing would make you more peaceless than falling into the trap of thinking that I am the owner of anyone or anything. Stop here because my time is over. So let's take a deep breath and all our attention inward into this sacred space behind our eyes, where I, the living being of light, I am radiating this beautiful energy of peace. And I am able to perceive the calm, the quiet, the freshness that comes from the original me. When I am calm, I have full clarity. When I am calm and peaceful, I feel safe. I am balanced. And as I move further into silence, into that realm of total peace, the home of all souls, I am just a being of light, just pure light in the vastness of the whole, in the presence of the ocean of peace, the source, the supreme. And I am open to the pure vibrations of God the Supreme, my Father. His rays of peace embrace me. They fill every corner of the soul. And I merge in the deep feeling of being at one in peace with the Supreme. In silence, in peace, I am me. In the highest company of God. And I keep the awareness and the joy of being who I am, of who I belong to. And as I return to the awareness of my physical body, I also radiate the power of peace to my human family, my silent vibration, my pure feeling touches the life of everyone around me. I am here to play my elevated part, and all I need to do is shine the light that I am. I am a being of peace. Om Shanti.